Hi everyone, Thursday the 21st of November and Club Grubbery time again. We're cranking them out, Johnny. We are cranking them out.
Yeah, it's a tight schedule, I've got to say.
It's a tight schedule. Ever since Suzanne Burns has come onto the team as our production admin, I mean, she's our staff of one. Uh,
Mm.
it's just been amazing. So, and I know she's been liaising with our lovely guest from the USA, from Georgia. We have today with us a wonderful guest. We've been trying to get her on for ages, but there's a certain hurricane that keeps going round and round and round and impacting on her. And we're talking today with Kym Spencer. Welcome to the show, Kym.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you. And we've already had a laugh and a giggle before we started to record, and Australians love that. And we've been discussing the draconian state of this country, New Zealand, and Canada, and how what once, Johnny, used to be the life rafts of the world if the fat hit the fan, and now the places you want to avoid.
Now they're tanks.
Now they're
Uh,
tanks. Just amazing. But I want to enlighten our people because John and I have a really close relationship with Meryl Dorey and Anita Hafmeister and the crew from the Australian Vaccine Risk Network. And they've been gracious enough to help line this interview up with you today, Kym. And we're really excited about it. We've been trying for several weeks, but as I said, a hurricane keeps getting in the way. Um, I've been doing a bit of research on who you are and what you've been doing, and I just want to read through some things. Um, you graduated from the University of Georgia in 1989. You pursued careers in television, public relations, and project management. Your son was diagnosed with autism and mercury toxicity in 2003. While recovering, your son from this autoimmune issue was caused by childhood vaccination. You spent 3 years as a family advocate for your son's pediatrician, supporting 350 families over 3 years. That's mighty. That's just amazing. In 2012, you co-founded the Thinking Mums Revolution, TMR, and that's www.thinkingmumsrevolution.com, a children's health advocacy and activism group. You subsequently created Team TMR, a not-for-profit organisation that raised and distributed money in the form of treatment grants to families living with autism. I'm puddling up just talking through this. You co-authored a book, The Thinking Mums Revolution, Autism Beyond the Spectrum, published by Skyhorse Publishing, and you toured the nation sharing your story at events, conferences, and television broadcasts. You've also served on the team of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Children's Health Defence, holding many offices, including Director of Communication. And you are mentioned in the dedications of RFK Jr.'s recent book, Vax Unvax, Let the Science Speak. Wouldn't that be nice? And your son with autism is doing well and can live independently due to the many alternative interventions. That's just a short picture of who you are and why it's so great to have you on this program and how it's going to be beneficial to our audience.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a long 20 years, but here I am, and I'll never shut up. Never.
Good, and neither do I, which is why I'm going to let John lead out straight off the bat because it's always me yakking over the top of him. And, as you know, John's a pleasantly retired paramedic. No, he wasn't. He was sacked because he wouldn't go along with it. But I got a feeling we're going to get his job back soon. But
who
John,
knows? Who knows?
who
Kim,
knows?
look, I think that the thing that stands out as a really imminent thing is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. coming into such an esteemed position in the new Trump presidential win. You obviously know him. You've worked with him. What do you think this is going to mean globally?
Um, it's giant, but let's not jump ahead of ourselves. He will have to be approved by the Senate of the United States government. There are plenty of people who would like to block this, including a few members of his family who are in public health here in the United States. Not all of his family, which they'd like to portray. I've been at events where I've seen handfuls and handfuls and handfuls of Kennedys, and he is one of 11 children. So there's four, I guess, that speak publicly against him, also who benefit by being a part of the Biden administration or any Democratic-led administration. But what has happened here is shocking. I just still don't think I can believe it. We fought for this for a very long time. I met Bobby probably in 2014. He was a regular speaker at a conference held in Chicago, Illinois, called Autism One that happened year after year after year. I'd been to probably 10 before Bobby came in and started being a keynote speaker, kind of letting us know that he had had these mothers come into basically onto his front porch and dump thousands of pages of science and said, "I'm not leaving until you read this." Because he had been already as an environmental lawyer, had been looking at mercury in the coal mines or coal plants, and how much they were expelling into the air, and how much that kind of mercury was damaging human health. And these mothers were saying, "Well, we know that there's mercury in these vaccines, so why is this happening?" And he listened. He says he came kicking and screaming into this platform to speak out about what's happening here with our kids. Large amounts of mercury have been, or thimerosal, as you would call it, which is a large amount, 50% mercury in the vaccines, have been taken out, replaced by aluminum, and trace amounts of mercury and aluminum together are a million times more toxic than mercury alone. So, through these, things that he's been through with us as autism moms, and vaccine injured moms, actually, I should say. We shouldn't even call it autism, but we need to get attention and support from the government. But anyway, he has been with us for a really long time, and saying all these things wherever he could get a platform. And, I just have been so proud to be able to be around it all.
Kym, given that that Trump now or the Republican Party now will control the Senate and pretty much control everything, even got the popular vote, do you think it's likely that RFK will get in, or have you got a 50-50 bet on it?
Logic would point that way. But there are some Republicans that are, what would you say, still frustrated with Trump, don't agree with a lot of the other things he wants to do, have some sort of bought in, personal interest in pharma and what they do. He's detracted a lot at this point from talking about vaccines as much as he's talked about food. But he has sued Monsanto. He has been involved in that too. I remember one lawsuit that I helped him with was gathering information. He was suing Beechnut, which is a baby food maker, and how much glyphosate there is in that product. People injured by glyphosate all over the place, Monsanto, just different ways that he's done a lot about the vaccines, but also about the food. Also has had on staff at different times lawyers and people who are helped him with the 5G issue. So emitting, radiation to wherever we live is not necessarily great. So he's been all over the place with all of the stuff. So the less he says about vaccines at this point is probably better. But the point being that when we start to look at why we have this many vaccines on the schedule, what our escalating numbers of sick children are, and really get into how they're made and how they're studied, the gig will be up, no matter how much he talks about it. It's just a matter of paying attention to those kinds of things. So as far as him getting approved, I know that there's plenty of Democrats, and you call them Greens, right? They are fighting against this. ironically, even though he comes from Democratic royalty in our country. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think that with a lot of Trump's appointees at this point, the people he's announced so far, there's a lot of them that are questioned by the other side. And so there's going to be a rigmarole no matter how we look at it. But they're not going to be able to turn down everyone. So maybe they'll pay more attention to his appointee for attorney general or something else. But I know that he and Trump are hardcore hunkered down right now, trying to rebuild HHS, NIH, all of these agencies so that we can get to the real truth about what's happening here. And it seems silly that anybody would fight against, bringing our numbers of chronic illness down in this country, because we are the worst of industrialized countries. But yeah, they're fighting.
The thing that troubles me most about where Trump's at the moment is I've never heard him admit to a mistake ever, and he's made a lot of them. And the one that he really needs to admit to is warp speed for this to really go ahead so we can get some stuff happening. And I can't see him ever doing that, which has got to be a stumbling block for RFK in the future, because if we can't start solving the problems of vaccine injured around the world, not only from this particular one, but all the other ones you've been fighting for so long, unless Trump admits that warp speed was a mistake. Do you think that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, through the years, even Bobby Kennedy has aggravated the autism moms that I run around with by saying that he's not anti-vaccine, that he's vaccinated his children, that he blah, 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 whatever his defense is, to say, I'm not going to keep vaccines from people who really want them, all the things that he can say to kind of keep this issue of being an anti-vaxxer at bay. But in the long run, what is really true is when somebody's allowed to dig into it, somebody's allowed to look at all of this, it really is going to show itself that they haven't been studied correctly, that they aren't safe in numbers that they are given in a day. There's no reason for a 6-month-old to have had 20 needles in their lifetime. I mean, when we are able to get to what's really happened here, then they can say, see, so now, although we said we're not against all of this, we're showing you absolutely how you shouldn't follow along with this anymore. Whatever game they're playing, of semantics, of trying to keep the media off of their backs about whatever their angle is here. I mean, there's not going to be any denying when they get in there and show what science is already there, how the American public and the world have been fooled by what they have used to defend what they've done. No matter, and I know you guys came into this from the COVID angle and don't get me wrong, I would never want to say that COVID might be what saved us, but COVID certainly has set off a whirlwind of people opening their eyes of what these mothers have been screaming forever. I mean, my son is 24, so that's how long I've been at this, and nobody wanted to listen. Some of these doors have been opened by this, and the science is not there. The science is cracked. The science is full of lies. It's too convoluted. There's too much, oh, hey, Mr. Pfizer president, why don't you come over here and sit on this panel at the CDC kind of stuff, to make decisions. So it's a crazy world we're living in right now. I can't believe that it might crack open soon. I truly never thought it would happen in my lifetime. I really didn't.
Kym, I mean, we tinker around the edges with conferences, and we put on our own little road shows with special guests trying to open people's eyes up to all this. I can't help but think that the vaccination issue needs something like a G20. Do you think that we could perhaps hold something like that maybe in Australia and get a commitment from Bobby to actually spearhead that and get all the world players at this event where we could actually have some meaningful dialogue that would be on the world stage.
Yeah, absolutely. Through the years, there have been plenty of protests. In the United States, each state has their own different rules for who can go to school, who can run for president, who can be on the ballot. I mean, there's so much that's put to the states, and for many years we were just fighting what was going to happen in each state. A big person involved in this has been Dale Bigtree, who is the anchor of the High Wire. Also has been largely involved in Bobby's campaign before he dropped out to basically align himself with Trump. We've been at state house after state house. I've been door to door with Bobby in DC and in my state's capital, Atlanta, trying to explain, what's going on here. I know Bobby has spoken in Germany. I know he's been to many different countries. I have no doubt that he would love to go there and stand in front of a crowd like you have behind you. At this point, what I'm super interested in is if he does get approved for HHS, how much of that's going to really be available to him to do. The price on their heads, especially as a kid, is huge right now. So security is going to be large. Lots of hitting the ground running with executive orders concerning fluoride in our water, glyphosate in our food, repealing our 1986 act that took liability away from pharmaceutical companies for a vaccine injury, which is a large part of why things have gotten this bad. If we could catch him before the inauguration, January 20th, maybe. But again, so much security. There's a lot of fear here that something bad will happen. Already been 2 attempts on Trump, and who's to say that wouldn't happen again with Bobby? But yes, I mean, this is an international, and he understands that. And I would hope that, something like that could really happen for us. Absolutely. We know in the United States that a lot of things have happened in Australia that are even more stringent than we've been dealing with here. And I think I was talking to Hedy about this earlier. There's a movie called Vaxxed that Dale Bigtree was a part of. I don't know if you guys have seen, there's 3 versions. Or 3. One is about injured people, one's about recovery from injury, and then another one about some of the latest COVID, mostly about COVID vaccines. But we had a bus that went around the United States. And am I talking too much?
No.
Okay, because I could just go on and on. I don't need you guys, okay?
No, that's right. It helps us not to talk, believe me.
I really don't.
Right.
I mean, I'll tell Australia everything.
Go for it.
So we had for a long time a bus that was wrapped that had vaxxed on the bus, and our people that worked for that whole entire situation with that movie would go from town to town, city to city, and people would sign the bus and say, what number are you of your vaccine injury? And many deaths, many injuries. My son's number was 2,880. You just put your number and you sign the name of the injured person. And Anita, I believe, and some of the people that you guys are in contact with and work with, brought 3 people from the Vax team over to Australia. And they didn't have an RV that was wrapped, but apparently there was some sort of vehicle where they ran around the country for 2 weeks where people could sign in Australia. And as they were leaving the country, Polly Tommy is one of the biggest interviewers that did for Vaxxed, and now she works for Bobby with Children's Health Defense, and they have a bus now. But she was pulled aside as she was leaving Australia and blamed for really absolutely nothing, and was banned from all Commonwealth countries for 3 years, just without real cause. One other thing that happened in Australia, oh, that I did want to tell you about, and it's not a bad thing, but you were talking about how I founded the Thinking Moms Revolution. We actually had where it kind of defunct now. It was a bunch of autism moms that really tried really hard for like 5 or 6 years to change things, and then we needed to pay attention to our families again and our children. But we had a chapter in Australia. Her name was Chris Barrett that started that. We haven't been absolutely absent from what you guys have been going through. I know it's a million times worse with COVID. Your censorship bill, seeing it all, working with Bobby and working with Thinking Moms Revolution, we were censored off of platforms long before COVID. So, and have had to speak in code for a really long time. So it's not anything new as far as we're concerned. But yes, I mean, we're all one in this fight. That's for sure.
I think we've got to look at how we got here. I mean, it goes way back to Rockefeller's new model for health of global health. We've been going downhill from there.
Yeah. How do you, when you really go back to I just wish people could just back up, to history of all of this. And realize that what we're trapped in right now has only been around for 150 years or so. This model of medicine. That before that, we had all kinds of alternative things: herbal, homeopathic. We had homeopathic hospitals in the UK. I mean, we had homeopathic dentists. I mean, we had herbal medicine was crazy. I can't believe chiropractic hasn't been totally snuffed out, but that was, another health approach that we could use. And then we're starting to list the things that I was able to use for my son to recover him so that he could actually be a participating member of society, which he is. But out of pocket, out of the agreement, of the general mainstream medicine model here. So this is so new, and it came around because they figured out a way to make, Rockefeller started it, make medicine out of chemicals and charge a lot of money for it because everybody was looking for the magic pill, and this was the new magic pill that could help something. And then what happened was these companies, or these pharma companies that are making all these pills, they could afford lobbyists. So they could go to the government, swarm these elected officials with their money to promote their medicines, and also what insurance would pay for or not pay for, and snuff everything else out and make everyone believe, especially like say my parents and my grandparents' generation, believe that this is the only thing there's ever been, that this is the only way, that we must trust these people. They are the smartest people in our communities. If you could go to medical school or law school and you lived in a community, then you were the smartest people ever, right? And so we worship them. And then how do we get trapped now? A lot of it is lobbying. So here we are with this model that hopefully Bobby is going to show is not the end all be all of how it should work. Like you said, I worked for my pediatrician for 3 years. Luckily, he was very open-minded and saw what was happening, got in lots of trouble for not fully vaccinating everybody in his office. And he allowed me to bring in families to talk to them for as long as 2 hours to figure out first steps with their children with autism, and how to clean up their diet, how to find the doctor who really could help them, how to run a few tests and find out about their food sensitivities. A million things we could do there. And he allowed me to do that, but he got in trouble with insurance. They came in one day and said, we're pulling 10 random files for your patients that use Blue Cross Blue Shield. And if they are not vaccinated to a certain percentage rate, then we will pull Blue Cross Blue Shield from your office. So he was probably about 50-50 Blue Cross Blue Shield and 50-50 Medicaid. and then maybe a few little Cignas and Aetnas and whatever. And I don't know what these, companies are called in Australia or whether or not you have them. But basically, he was going to be punished for not fully vaccinating his patients. Other stories, including Bobby's stories, tell of of huge bonuses for people or for doctors who do fully vaccinate. So yeah, the incentives that are there make or break, the doctors' medical bills and the houses and the children and the whatever they've got going on. So yeah, it goes so deep. It goes so deep.
Kim, the autism and associated disorders, I mean, they're almost the equivalent of a pandemic, really, in society now. I mean, you can't not speak to a parent that would know somebody that has a child that seems to be affected by it. Now, whether they attribute it to vaccines or not, could you give us a few tips for everyone out there on your experience on how to deal with it? What worked? What benefited your son that was easy to access?
Absolutely. That's sad to say when I start talking about this. So lucky that my family supported me, that there was a little money to be had, and nobody went behind me and undid it, or my marriage stayed together, and that my son's pathways must not have been as broken as some of the people that I have worked with and been around. So I know people who have spent 4 times as much time, money, doctors, everything than me, and never gotten anywhere. So unfortunately, it's all over the place. I guess that's why they call it a spectrum. When people would come to see me in Dr. Ramos's office, and bless his soul, he has passed away from actually from COVID corruption, which is another story. But what we started with, yeah, he was punished for helping our families, basically. The first thing we started with was diet. We knew that the gut-brain axis is really a thing at the time in 2003 when we figured out what was going on. That wasn't really talked about, but I was just reading online what autism is because all I knew was Rain Man, the movie, the day that someone said that my son had pervasive developmental disorder. But then, as I researched through the next few days, I found that gluten and casein, so the big protein in wheat, the big protein in dairy, were affecting him. He had narrowed himself down to only foods that had those proteins in them. He was getting an opiate-like effect from them, so super high. He probably never saw me. I took him off of those 2 foods. And I think it was about 3 or 4 days. He was in his high chair and he started looking at me like this, like he's like, "Oh, that's where that voice is coming from." Like he had never really seen me. He had just been kind of blindly just throwing himself through space, and we didn't get it. He was the first grandchild, the first child. Like nobody knew what we were looking at all. Which now I could say in 2 seconds, that kid needs attention. But for us, it had slid under our noses for a long time, just coddling him, I guess. Or, the cameras went off when things got ugly. But anyway, started with diet, then started getting into, back then it was called Yahoo groups, where we would talk about heavy metal toxicity, brain inflammation, encephalopathy, of course, these food sensitivities and allergies. Sensory issues, a big one. If you look at the 5 senses and you look at, sometimes a child could be oversensitive or undersensitive or not sensitive at all, you can come up with a million combinations of what this looks like in a child. So nobody can really pinpoint, if that makes sense. Exactly the same thing happened with every child. It's so different. Then we found a doctor in Florida who was treating children with IV chelation and hyperbaric therapy. And so we worked with him for a while. Now, he has since been murdered. His name is Jeff Bradstreet. Yeah, found in a river with 2 gunshots to the chest. After the FDA raided his office, he was researching something called GCMAF, which is a cancer modulator. And besides that, recovering kids with autism. My doctor here, who I worked for, was able to bring the protocol here for us so we didn't have to travel to Florida all the time. So we did all that. And by about age 9, so starting at age 3, about age 9, Dr. Bradstreet, who had been murdered, he had dismissed us as patients. He had bigger fish to fry. My son was doing really well, but for me, not well enough at all. We were not out of special education. We were not in a position to just say this is good enough at all. I would really, even though taxation is theft, I really did want to raise a taxpayer. So then we found after that homeopathy, which was hard for me to get my mind around. But a book by another autism mom who's also a rocket scientist. Her name is Amy. Oh no, I'm not going to be able to remember it. The name of the book is called Impossible Cure, and she talks about bringing her child back from autism with homeopathy, which is so much less expensive, so much less invasive, so much less time consuming than anything we'd been doing with diet, supplementation, IV chelation, hyperbaric appointments, sauna, gosh, you name it. We had been through a lot of things that we had tried. So homeopathy really let me rest for a minute, and we got amazing, amazing progress there. Also connecting with other mothers on Facebook, and before that, like I said, Yahoo groups. That's how we created the Thinking Moms Revolution. 23 of us came together from around the world: Malaysia, London, United States, Canada, came together and told our stories in our book and shared with each other online how to find the practitioners that were listening to us, that were bringing the most successes, how to understand how to read our own guts and follow our own intuition, which isn't really easy if you're not used to that. And to ignore the outside world and try to get our kids back. So anyway, yeah, there's so much out there, and a lot of it I don't even understand anymore. My son has been what I would consider recovered to the point at which he is independent. So that I've kind of dropped the ball on all the latest and greatest of what has happened here is happening now. But there's so much out there. There's so much out there to research. You just have to really have the time, and you have to have nobody that's going to undo what you do or give you crap about what you do or undo what you do. And unfortunately, at some points, pay for it. So anyway, we've been lucky. My son is a joy. He is the sweetest thing. Doesn't have a devil on his shoulder, if that makes any sense. He knows what makes him feel good, and he knows what only the positive, and it's really been great to watch.
Kym, why do you think so many of the advocates in this field are women?
In my case and in my family, I mean, somebody needed to go figure out how to pay for it. This is, if you want to ask my husband, I just heard him come home. He'll come tell you that my life is in the red. There is no money in this and helping other families. Daughter Ramos did pay me, but that was nominal. I mean, I probably made $4,000 a month doing that. But it was just awesome to me that he was allowing me an office space and the props to say, I'll let you go help these families, and I'll back you up as much as I can. But other than that, I mean, the dads have a lot of jobs outside of this, and the moms see what happened. We're in the day to day. I mean, of what it looks like to clean up poop that's been smeared all over, or sit with your child through a seizure every other day, or your child sweats through their sheets and urinates in their sheets 3 times a night. I mean, you do not, or in the case of my child, he was so much bigger than me that he put my back out a few times, kicked me in the head because he wasn't potty trained at age 6, almost 6. So I'm changing this 6-year-old's diaper and he whacked me. I couldn't get him in and out of the car seat. So there's a lot of motivation to try to find how to get our children back, I guess you could say. But the dads don't get enough credit, that's for sure. But they are backing us up as moms.
I mean, there's the social cost to this, isn't there, Kym? But I mean, the economic loss is just phenomenal. I mean, healthcare in the US is not cheap as it's becoming in Australia. It used to be once that you could go to the doctor free of charge in Australia, but it's not the case anymore. I mean, these vaccine injuries are now an industry, aren't they? I mean,
oh yeah, and that's exactly what Bobby says. I mean, if you can, the most lucrative thing you can do in the United States right now is get a child sick when they're young and keep them as a customer through their life.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. But as I've listened to you guys on your other podcasts, I mean, it's mind-boggling that these people exist in our lives and that they have come around to ruin our governments, ruin our bodies, ruin everything about human life. That just seems like, who would ever think that this is a good idea or a way to go, and we're still here. We are. It's crazy about that, and I don't know if Bobby's going to be able to make exactly the change that we need, but I can't even believe we are where we are. I mean, it is nothing, like I said, I'd ever thought I'd see in my lifetime, that someone would give Bobby this platform. Because as I've said, so many years before we thought Bobby could get into this place, what really was a big point was that, in the United States, and I'm not sure if it's everywhere, but, pharma has no liability for vaccine injury. They went to the government in the 80s and said, we have so many injuries that we cannot pay for the lawsuits that are being brought to us. So we're going to stop making vaccines, which everybody thought, oh, public health, public health, public health. Or you can take liability away from us. So in 86, they did. They made this governmental court. And basically, I mean, I've known a person who is a lawyer within that system. I mean, you get paid the same whether you win or lose. It's hard to prove. Many of the people who have testified there have been discredited like crazy, even though they're telling the truth. And so, what does this look like if pharma does have to take on responsibility for all of these vaccine injuries that have really happened, some of which people realize they have and lots don't? We can't afford it. We just simply can't afford the massive amount of damage that's been done. And let's just start with sudden infant death syndrome at the highest of tragedy, at the highest of human sacrifice or, injury or, result of all of this. You just start there, and then you start, okay, 1 in 34, maybe 1 in 22 in the United States with autism. We can't we can't find enough people to serve in our army. We can't find enough people to run our small businesses or our governmental or take public office or whatever and try to fix all this. We're in a hot mess here, and how can we afford to turn this around? So through the courts, was pretty much all of our option for the longest time before this turnaround happened with Bobby this year, with dropping out of the race as a Democrat and then an independent, and then to endorse Trump, and then to get this position. And for Trump to agree that say, Bobby has free reign to do what he wants with this. We still probably can't afford it, and that's probably why they're going to fight against him being confirmed. But it's shocking. It's shocking that we're even this close.
It's funny that we're saying we can't afford it, but we can't afford not to either.
Right. Oh, absolutely. What is it? Stephanie Seneff is a MIT researcher, and she's been saying, wow, since we published our Thinking Moms book in 2013. So say we've been working on this for 15 years. She said forever ago that in 2032, we'd have 1 in 2 with autism at the rates they've been going. And, I mean, gosh, okay. If you're a mom like me, had a child severely injured or severely affected, and the people that I advocate for, that's one set of the spectrum. There's a lot of other people who call themselves neurodiverse, who actually can advocate for themselves, who actually can hold a job, who actually can whatever, and claim some level of autism, who may be able to step up and do some of this, but oftentimes their self-pity gets in the way, or their want for to be validated gets in the way of them being able to do anything really productive and wonderful for us. So, and I'm sorry if that's not a generalization. It's just kind of like a thought of, there are people on the spectrum that might be able to do stuff for us. I just haven't seen a whole lot that are actually making it work. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I'm staggered at how many people just don't even want to look at it. I was sent a story with photographs yesterday of a woman in her mid-30s who's they showed a before photo where both her hands and feet were black, and they'd mummified since she had the Moderna, and as a result, they had to amputate both her feet and both her hands, and yet we have groups like our Therapeutic Goods Administration who say, "Oh, we don't want to know about that," even though we have authorised this so-called vaccine. We don't want to know about that stuff. It's beyond our remit. So
the things that are coming to light from this particular situation, and sometimes I just don't even want to call it a vaccine because it isn't. The damage that's been done, and I even see it in, I mean, not just physical ailment, death, blood clots, myocarditis, athletes dying more than they ever had in the last 36 years, is the mental situation of it all. A lot of just like a switch has gone off with the way people drive, react to things, are able to handle stuff. And maybe some of that is, I'm starting to see that I gave into something that I shouldn't have. And now I'm terrified, that something is going to happen to me in the next 5 to 10 years, which is highly likely. But the scope of it all, of how many are affected in a million different ways, is so sad, so sad. Even my and I hesitate to say this, but I just found out this weekend that my dad was bullied into it I thought of all people he never would have. I mean, what do you say to that? I just was like, okay, well, I'm going to take this little piece of information. I'm going to dump it over here, because what else do I do with that? I mean, we knew that it wasn't for my family. My husband, myself, my affected son, and then I was 5 months pregnant with my daughter when my son was diagnosed. So she got a couple vaccines. That was an interesting story. I went to my pediatrician and I said, which ones should I be scared of? I don't want to do them all. And but I'll do one at a time if you just tell me what diseases are scary, because I didn't know what any of those diseases were. I was a trusting young mother. Well, I wasn't that young. I was 38. But when they advised which ones she should get, the first two were hepatitis B, which isn't anything but sexually transmitted. So, they know nothing about any of this stuff. And we knew it wasn't right for our nuclear family. And my daughter is a college student at a major university. And she's not been bullied, but she has to keep quiet. But to realize, that this was the right choice for us all as a relief, and for you guys to have stood up to this as well. I just commend you guys. To stand up to all that, lose your job. I mean, it's giant. It's giant.
Well, all those people behind us in the images have all gone through the same sacrifice, and many of them a lot worse. And that behind John there and me is the scene of the biggest rally in Australian history, according to what we've been told. And it was all about vaccines. And I guess COVID is something we had to all go through to wake us up to what you guys have been talking about for 20 or 30 years. And I guess we wake in fright, but we're out of time, Kym. We need to move on. We would love to get you back on again to discuss further aspects of it.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of other moms like me, don't have to hog the spotlight over here, that have other stories as well. Working for Bobby has given me a lot of insight, and so we can talk about that offline sometime. But yeah, we love to tell our stories. We can't ignore what's happening here. It is giant. And thank you so much, guys, for letting me come on and tell some of our story.
Thank you so much. We might close it with a prayer. Dear Lord Father in heaven, we seek your blessings on the work that we're doing, because we feel that we all need to be illuminated in the light of truth. So Father, as we do the things we do in this battle that we find ourselves in, may we draw on your energy for your outcomes. We ask in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, Johnny, you've often been heard to say,
you just couldn't make this stuff up.
You couldn't make this stuff up. Stay out of the trees, everybody. And don't forget, if you love somebody and you haven't told them, make sure you do. Kym Spencer, it's been an absolute delight, and we thank you so much for your courage and your efforts in the last 2 decades. God bless you.
I hope someday we can all see each other in real life.
That would be great. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching Club Grubbery. We need your support, so consider throwing a few bucks our way. Would be very, very helpful at this time. But in the meantime, keep looking after each other and do whatever you do with compassion. See you, Johnny.
See you guys.
Bye for now.